Akhetaten's Gates, Chapter 28. The time came for me to give birth to my fourth child. As I had done many times before, I went through the semi-routine, but though I bore fruit, I still lacked a stem. I did not bear my husband a son. Yet again I had given him a girl. Exquisite Beauty of Aten was her title. Her name was Neferneferutin. This was a joyous and bittersweet addition to our family. On the other hand, Akhetaten was very pleased to have Neferneferutin, but in the absence of a son, it was already beginning to put the pressure on and reminding him of his future political obligation. A shadow was looming over us like a heavy cloud, and we were fully aware of it. A bird let out a loud cry as it took flight. This made Neferneferutin go wide-eyed, as she had never seen a bird before, nor ever heard such a sound. Everything was so new and exciting, and she was very curious and amazed by it all. This was the first time that I had ever brought her outside to rest in the royal gardens. Meridaten and Akhetaten were outside as well, playing with a new ball. It was a gift from, of all people, Hara. It was much cleaner and seemingly safer than paint. It was a stroke of genius, really. The girls enjoyed sharing this item, finding more fun in playing together rather than side by side and separately. As for Akhetaten, she was sitting in the shallows of a fountain, splashing herself happily and finding relief there from the hot sun. Akhetaten soon joined us quietly and peacefully. The two oldest children stopped what they were doing, dropping the ball, and rushed over to their father, demanding hugs and kisses. He happily obliged them, giving them little tickles as well. At the sight of him, Akhetaten splashed more enthusiastically, crying out happily. "You come in, the silence is broken," I teased. He said nothing, but merely gave me his kind and gentle smile as he stepped around to peer down at Neferneferutin, who was beginning to doze. "She is so beautiful," he whispered. "Is something wrong?" I asked, realizing he seemed a little unlike himself. "You look a little distant." "Not at all," he replied. "I just wanted some family time. I actually have something for you." "Ooh, for me?" I asked with glee. I loved presents. What girl didn't? "What is it?" "It is my ode to you." "Ah, after all these years, you are still trying to serenade me with romantic poetry." "Of course," he chuckled. "Okay, then. Let me hear it." "Nuh-uh-uh," he replied in a sing-song voice, waving a finger. "You have to say please first. A queen must always remember her manners." "Damn it, Akhetaten," I laughed. "Oh, all right, since you're being so cute about it and all. Please." He gave me a happy nod, clearing his throat, standing tall to recite his piece. "She looks like the rising morning star, my beloved Nefertiti, at the start of a happy year, shining bright and fair of skin. Lovely is it, the look of her eyes, pools of enchanting beauty. Sweet is it, the words from her lips, as a wistful breeze. With such graceful steps, she treads the ground, capturing my heart within her movements. She causes all men's necks to turn and lay their eyes upon her. Joy fills he of whom she embraces. He is the most blessed of men." I couldn't help but blush, as I always did when he did something like this. This was a very colorful and beautiful way of saying that he had what everyone wanted. Every man would give anything to have me, and it was he who was graced with such a blessing, and he was grateful for it beyond anything. "You wrote that for me?" "It is all for you." I gave him a giddy giggle. This was the powerful king that men feared, the son of the mighty god Aten. They feared him as Pharaoh, as though he were a raging lion. But to me, he was no more than a kitten in my lap. To this man, people groveled, resting upon their bellies before him and kissing the earth at his feet. Yet to me, he was still the humble one. He took great pride in his role as king, son of a god, and a father. For that, I could not fault him. Many memories of him came to me. Oh, how he had grown. In my hands, I made him a king. He had a special place in many hearts. I had to chuckle inwardly at one memory of his mother as she once spoke to me of him. "I admire your independence," she had said. "You are a perfect mate for my son. He is the type of man that needs a strong woman by his side. For him, that strength will carry forever his heart. He needs coaxing to find his own strength. Who is it that is better than you, the lady of his fancy?" I had to smile at such words. I believed her. Akhenaten had told me many times that his love for me, it was love at first sight. But even that was an interesting concept. That first night, at my father's party, he had said that he could not see me that well. Yet he saw my personality, and he fell in love with it. My father. I. To think that as a child, I once loved and admired him. He came off so very prestigious. Everybody in the neighborhood wanted to be him, a pillar of the community, a successful military leader, a friend of Pharaoh, blessed with a beautiful wife and beautiful daughters, of whom took Pharaoh's fancy. I realize now that it was not as pure as it had seemed. Leah and I, we were pawns. Leah, as queen to a Pharaoh Thutmose V, would have brought I great prestige. But in a strange twist of fate, he was still able to claim that prestige, even having won over a new wife of his own after spending many years alone. I was never sure how my mother had gone, and it was never a proper topic of discussion. Needless to say, however, he was able to gain his prestige, as I said, with me. In a way, it made me feel used and dirty. It was when I thought of my place through my father that I felt ashamed to be Queen of Egypt, married to my beloved Akhenaten. But I often reminded myself that I didn't matter. What mattered was the undying love my husband and I had for one another. But I couldn't ignore him entirely. I had a knack for intrigue, and, despite how he hid it from all but me, he did not like my husband very much. He disagreed with many a deed, but chose never to voice it aloud, knowing that he would lose his political status and favor. That just would not do. He just seemed to always bring out a nastiness in me. But it was not my eyes that fell upon him warily the most. It was none other than an overbearing Queen T. I had to admire her spectacular female intuition, even if she never voiced a word of it in regards to him. Perhaps it was simply the mother in her. Akhenaten was a grown man, but still her baby boy. While he focused on politics, his daughters, Aten, and myself, T focused on a potential enemy. She would be quick to devour him if his actions grew questionable. That was, after all, the nature of the mighty Queen T. I was pulled from my thoughts by loud cheers. Akhenaten had taken to playing the splash game with Akhetaten, as Meroddaten and Akhetaten returned to their ball game. I could only smile at him. He was certainly a sight to behold as king. But when all was said and done, it was this simple family man I loved to see most. He was more beautiful than anything. "Nefertiti," he said suddenly, "let's have another baby." Already? The urge stirs in me. "Then you give birth." "Ah, my precious," he chuckled. "My darling. My beloved." Uh-oh. That was a sure sign that he was up to something. He was clever, so that sort of brain work from him was quite a dangerous potential weapon. Can you imagine how lovely a fifth child would be? Oh, no, he wouldn't. Look at them. They are symbols of our love. I'm not going to fall for it. And you are so beautiful as well. There is not a moment when you are in my presence, even when you aren't, that I do not long to touch you. Must fight it. Imagine how lovely your eyes, those amazing, beautiful brown eyes would look on a strong little boy. Mustn't give in. Oh, how I love you so much. Damn it, Akhenaten! How did he do that? All right. You made your point quite clear. We'll try for another baby. But can I heal from this one first? Let's enjoy the ones that we have for a while before making another. He gave a gentle nod. Fair enough. Glad we agree. Now quit giving me the come hither look, I laughed. He smiled, coming over and lifting my crown from my head, letting my hair fall down. He kissed my forehead and ran his long fingers through my wavy strands. He then peered down at Akhetaten again. Ah, she is so cute. She shall be another apple of your eye. Apple? I don't know. I've heard you say it before, he laughed. The baby began to squirm and make fussy noises from her place on the blanket. This got our full attention. She's probably hungry, I suggested. I'll take care of her. You have 3 other daughters that would love to battle and compete for your attention. Then I should tend to such a thing, shouldn't I? He replied. Yes, I giggled. You should. Akhetaten let out a long sigh, slumping in his throne. The morning had been long, and he had only just finished worship. The moment it was over, he traveled from the great Aten temple back through the king's bridge into the throne room. And here was where he flopped. The court was quiet, deafeningly quiet. The children were either at their lessons or napping. How tempting. As for T's whereabouts, they were unknown, as was I's. I suppose it was just as well. There was nothing to do at the moment, and the peace was much appreciated. The court held no musicians and no dancers. In fact, it was rather boring in the court now that most of the business was conducted. So when a noble was bid to enter, we perked up and sat straight quickly. A sloopy king wouldn't do. My pharaoh, the noble sighed, kneeling before my husband and kissing the ground at his feet. Something seems to be troubling you, Akhetaten observed. I'm afraid that we have found something blasphemous, my pharaoh, a true insult to your very faith. Blasphemy, you say? Do go on. There is treachery to your good name in the city. Well, be out with it. What is it that we are dealing with? There are people within the city that are looking to gods other than Aten, the noble said, holding up 2 small Phaeon's figurines. Unfortunately, from that distance, they were just too small for Akhetaten to see or identify. Oh, I sighed, holding out my hands to receive them. It was a dwarf and a hippo. These are figurines of Bez and Tauret. I held them up for Akhetaten to see. He took them and looked them over. These were gods that were important in the field of childbirth. The upright, pregnant hippo, with the crocodile on her back and sagging breasts, was Tauret. The hairy little dwarf was Bez. I see, he said. We have destroyed many of them and confiscated many others, the noble said. We who? A small militia and I. How fruitless. Go back out and replace the things that you have stolen and destroyed of this nature. The noble seemed absolutely shocked. I don't understand. Surely your majesty does not approve of this. These? At this point, I really don't care. These deities mean nothing to me. These are minor gods, with no national importance that would trouble Aten. They are symbols of childbirth. As of now, I don't see how they could be anything to worry about. I want my streets to be filled with children. I wish to look out of the window of appearance and see them playing up and down those streets. These mere toys make mothers happy and comfortable. Those women will fill Akhetaten with the generations. If they are foolish enough to believe in them, I shall compromise generously and let them have it. Fertility is an important part of Akhetaten, I chimed in. We hope to see many children born in our city during our reign. To accomplish that, the mothers must feel safe. Childbirth is a dangerous business. Though I do not believe these deities hold any power, it brings a sense of comfort to them, and it makes it easier on them. Let them keep Tauret and Bez. They are no threat to Aten or the Lord of the Two Lands, Akhetaten. Akhetaten smiled at me. You speak so lovely. You need to talk about me more often. Don't go stretching your ego too far, I teased him with a side glance. The noble nodded and prostrated before us. Very well, my pharaoh. They shall be returned. I'm sure your people will be pleased." "I'm no monster," he said. "I don't want them to see me as one either. Divine or not, king or not, I'm a family man too." Seemingly satisfied, the noble stood and rushed off to carry out the order. Akhenaten returned to examining the figurines. "Was this wise of me, Nefertiti? My spiritual war against Amun. Is it a problem we cannot handle?" "I think you're doing fine," I replied. "This last decision here may help raise your popularity. That's always nice to look forward to." "Yes," he smiled. "Yes, it is."